What is going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. So if you guys have been following along, this is my dad's 2012 Silverado 1500. We've already gone ahead and done a LY6 6-liter swap. We got that thing all buttoned up with a BTR cam, refreshed it a little bit, and this thing is running and sounding phenomenal. But of course, once we got it together, the radiator started to leak. It does have a factory plastic radiator that also has the transmission and engine oil cooler incorporated in it. So we hit up our boys over at alloyworks and we picked ourselves up a new unit. So today we're gonna get this thing fired up, pulled over to the garage, then we will start swapping out the radiator. So let's get through the intro and jump right into today's video. Now that we've gotten through the intro, let's hit this thing with a cold start. We'll get it pulled up to the garage and we'll start swapping out for our new aluminum radiator. Alright, let's get to work. Alright guys, so the first thing that we're going to do here is Dad's going to pull out all the push pins and we'll get this plastic covering out of our way.
Don't need this no more. Throw it out.
Since we have this cold air intake on here, I'm just going to pull the tube off so that it's out of our way, so we're not constantly fighting around it. So let's get the mass airflow sensor unplugged. Got to get our line for our catch can out, or we can just go ahead and flip this thing around and set it up here out of our way. So to get the lower radiator hose off, you can either take the plastic panel down below the truck off, or if you're lucky, you can reach in here from the top and get the hose pulled back. So we'll let that drain for a few minutes, and then we can start working on getting the fan assembly and then the radiator out. We're going to try to catch as much of the fluid as we can. It's still going to make an absolute mess though, it always does. Now that we got the bottom radiator hose draining, we're going to go ahead and pop this top one off just to get it out of our way. Now we can take our line that goes to the overflow tank off, and then we can get down to the steam port line that goes to the cylinder heads. And we got this line out of our way. Don't drain. Now we can start pulling off our engine oil cooler lines and our transmission cooler lines that go to the radiator. So to get these transmission and engine oil cooler lines off the radiator, you have a little clip like this. I use a pick to get under it and then just gently work it all the way out around it. And then these lines will simply just pull right out. Sometimes you gotta wiggle them a little bit, but they usually come right out. So we've got 4 of those to do. We're gonna go ahead and get the rest of them done so that we can get this radiator out of here. Now that we've got the clips out of our lines, we can make sure that we pull all of those out of the radiator, get them out of our way. Then you can make sure you've got your fans unplugged. Very simple plug, just a little push clip. Now that we've got all that stuff moved, we should be good to try to pull this fan assembly out of here. Like so, and we can set this off to the side out of the way. Now we can start getting the radiator itself out. Alright, now we got our radiator loose. See if we can pull this one right out. Let it drip some of that coolant out. Tilt it back so we don't get coolant all over the front end. And now we've got our radiator out and we can set it off to the side. Let's go ahead and open up our new radiator and take a look at this thing. We decided to go with alloyworks. Now, if you guys noticed, we are running one in the GTO as well. They're 3-core all aluminum unit, and it's been a really nice piece. It's a good budget radiator for a project like this. I've been super happy with it so far. So let's go ahead, grab our alloyworks radiator. We'll get it up on the tailgate here and take a look at this thing. We'll go ahead and get this one pulled out of the box and take a look at it. It's actually extremely light for how big of a radiator this thing is. What I did want to mention is that they come pretty much ready to run. As you guys can see, we've got all of our fittings for our transmission and engine oil cooler lines. We've got some nutsert inserts here so that we can thread everything in and it should bolt right up. And then the little clips for your fan assembly and everything else to sit in. So we're gonna go through and just make sure we get this stuff all tightened up, make sure that it's good to go. I also like the fact that these come with a drain. They come with a petcock already in them, unlike the factory radiators in a lot of situations nowadays where you have to take a hose off and make a mess to get them drained. This one does have a drain on it, so that's really nice to see. Let's go through, we'll get everything tightened up, and then we can proceed on to installing this on the truck, fire it up, and see how this thing does. So the fittings for the transmission and the ones for the engine oil cooler are both O-ring style fittings, so you don't need to crank these things until they stop. We just want to snug them up and make sure that they're snug so that they can seal good against that O-ring. All right, we've got our drain valve tightened up. Now we can go ahead and switch over the rubber mounts so that this thing is isolated when we mount it on the truck. So we've got these little rubber mounts that came off the factory one, and you just kind of got to squish them into place, just like so. They actually fit pretty decent, and then they have this little metal insert to keep you from crushing it too much. Put that one in. Now we can grab the other ones. We're going to do the same thing all the way around. All right, we've got the little insulator bushings in, and then we've got the little feet right here. We're gonna set these in the truck because they'll just fall off the radiator. So we'll set them in the truck and then line this thing up when we go to set it down and in. It's close. There it goes. All right, thing dropped right down into place. Now that we've got the radiator sitting in here, we can go ahead and throw the bolts in. I'm gonna run these in. Do the same thing on the other side. Now on the other side, we did have to make a little shim thing. As you guys know, I always show even when we have things not go our way, but we had to use this little piece to shim it. I think it's just the wrong length bracket, or it's meant for something else. So like I said, we just had these little plastic spacers that we decided to use in there. Everything fits good. Not sure if you guys can see it, but the radiator fits in here flush how it should. I don't think we're gonna have any issues. We just didn't want to put a bunch of pressure on that bracket because that's what causes welds to snap. So we're gonna go ahead and run it with the spacer. We'll get this one tightened down, and then we can grab the fan assembly. Now we can try to snake the fan assembly in here. And we can start putting these lines back on. Then you just line them up, give them a little wiggle, and you'll feel it clip in just like that one just did. We did end up having to cut a little bracket off right here, just a piece of plastic that was in our way. With the bigger radiator, we think it just a little offset us, and I didn't want tension on these lines. So we can go ahead and pop our top line back in. Once again, line it up, wiggle it, and listen for the little click. Just like that. Pull back, it's not gonna go anywhere. Put our little safety clip on there, and that line's on and good. Now we can get our radiator hoses put back in place, get all of our lines ran, and start putting the intake back on. Now we can plug both of our fans back in. Now we're gonna run the bolts in for the fan since we know we're good to go there. Now we can get our steam port line ran to the radiator, and we can get the line that goes to our reservoir hooked up and get the hose clamps on there. We've got our lower radiator hose already hooked up. We still got to do our upper, and we've got all of our engine oil and transmission cooler lines hooked up. Now we can throw our upper radiator hose back on. Now we can put our intake tube back in. Get these tightened down, throw some coolant in it, and fire it up. Let's plug our mass airflow sensor in before we forget. Then we can grab some coolant and fire this thing up. So as you guys seen, we got this thing all back together. All the lines and hoses are hooked up. We've got the funnel on there. We've got to bleed this system down. So we're gonna fire the truck up. We'll let it run. We're gonna keep a close eye on the coolant reservoir tank, and then I always like to keep an eye on the transmission fluid level and the engine oil level, especially when doing a new radiator that has those things built in. It's just a good thing to keep an eye on. So we'll get this thing fired up. We're gonna have to let it run for a while, open the thermostat, and make sure we get all of the air out of the system. All right guys, so as you can see, we've got our Matco funnel hooked up here, and we're just gonna start pouring some coolant in. So we've got this thing running. We're gonna let it get up to temp. Already sucked down a bunch of coolant, so we'll add some of that, and then we will check for leaks and take it for a ride. Give it a couple little light revs just to see what it does, see if it sucks any more down. Sucked some down, you said?
Yes.
We're just letting this thing run to see if the fans are gonna kick on. Yeah, we hear that light header leak. We gotta put a new gasket in there. It's been like that ever since we did the swap. Just haven't gotten around to it. But we're just gonna wait and see if those fans kick on, make sure everything's good there, and then we'll go take this thing down the road, take it for a little ride. Fans did come on. I don't know if you guys can see it, but we're down to 170 degrees. This radiator is definitely putting in some work. So we let this thing sit here and cool off for quite a while. It's pretty much cooled down, and the coolant level is right about where it should be. So we're gonna take our funnel and everything off, throw our cap back in, and this thing should be good to go for a ride. So we decided to take this thing for a little ride. We just got off the highway and we're just driving some back roads right now. And this thing is definitely staying a lot cooler than it used to. It used to be at 210, and then it used to get a little hotter than that ever since the headers and cam swap. And now getting off the highway, it was at like 175, now maintaining 180. So really cool to see. The absolute only change since the before temp readings is the 3-core alloyworks radiator. So that thing is definitely putting in some work and keeping this thing nice and cool. So we're gonna do a little drive around town here. We'll head back, check for leaks, and I think this thing is dialed in. We're up to 183 right now. So just cruising around town, this thing is doing a great job at keeping this thing cool. So there you have it, guys. It's that easy to get one of these aluminum 3-core radiators installed on your Silverado. We've been going with alloyworks lately. We have one on the ProCharge GTO, and now we have one on the Silverado, and we've put some miles on both of them and been driving them for a few weeks at this point, and we haven't had any leaks or any weird issues. The only issue that we've had is that upper mounting bracket that you guys seen in today's video, where we had to make a little bit of a spacer because it was a little bit too long. But other than that, they have been working flawlessly, especially for the price. I think the GTO was $179, and then the one for the Silverado was $249 for the one that has the engine oil cooler and the transmission oil cooler, and they both seem to be working perfectly. So I'm super happy with them overall, and they definitely have dropped the operating temperature just a little bit. The truck used to be at about 210 on the dot all the time, and now it's running closer to 185, and we haven't changed the thermostat, and we haven't changed when the fans turn on or off. And then the GTO always used to run on the hot side as well, but lately it's been seeming to stay right around the thermostat that we have in that car, which is 180 degrees. So all in all, I've been pretty happy with both of these radiators, and if you're looking for a budget option, you might want to check them out. So as always, I appreciate you guys for checking out the channel. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring that bell, and check us out on all of our other social media platforms, Facebook, TikTok, and Bought to Build Official on Instagram, and we will catch you on the next one.